Howard Hughes, the billionaire who vanished. He set speed records in the sky, broke box office rules in Hollywood, and bought hotels just to keep the blinds closed. He was the richest recluse on Earth, the ghost in a penthouse who signed billion-dollar checks no one saw him write. When the cameras looked for him, he was gone. When the world forgot him, his fingerprints were on everything. This is Howard Hughes, aviator, mogul, myth. A man who chased perfection until it became a prison. A billionaire who vanished, leaving behind an empire, an institute, a series of wreckage and wonders, and a question that still vibrates like a propeller on takeoff. How far will genius go before it loses sight of the ground? To understand the man who disappeared, we start with the boy who refused to blend in. Chapter 1. Early life. The Toolmaker's Son. December 24th, 1905. Houston, Texas. Howard Robard Hughes Jr. is born into a family that turns grit into gold. His father, Howard Sr., patents a revolutionary rotating drill bit, the two-cone rock eater that unlocks deep oil. Hughes Tool Company explodes into a fortune. His mother, Aline, is protective, meticulous. She measures his health like a ledger. Howard is a tall, intense child who breathes machines like other kids breathe air. At 11, he builds Houston's first wireless radio transmitter. At 12, he bolts an engine to a bike. He's not good at ordinary. He's obsessed with making things better than they need to be. He's shy in rooms, loud on paper. Perfection is already a habit. Tragedy comes early and fast. In 1922, his mother dies. In 1924, his father follows. Barely out of adolescence, Hughes finds himself the principal heir to an empire. He seeks legal emancipation, takes control of Hughes Tool, and does what he will do for the rest of his life. Bets big, alone. He heads to California, sunlight and sound stages, pulling the company's steady cash like a fuel line for dangerous dreams. Hollywood is a system. He's an outlier. He doesn't speak the language of studios. He speaks the dialect of obsession. A son of steel with oil for blood, he learned to stand where others would. If rules were rails that slowed the train, he laid his own across the plain. Hollywood wanted hits. He wanted the sky. Chapter 2. Struggles and failures. Hollywood, hangars, and hard landings. Los Angeles, late 1920s. The young heir throws himself into movies. 2 Arabian Nights, 1927, wins an Academy Award for Best Director, Comedy, for Louis Milestone, whom Hughes backs. Then comes The Racket, 1928, Scarface, 1932, too violent for censors, and the monumental Hell's Angels, 1930. A World War I aerial epic that devours time and money. He shoots it first as a silent film, then reshoots it for sound. He crashes planes trying to get the angles. People whisper, "Madman." He hears, "More speed." He's learning a dangerous lesson. Perfection eats schedules and risk eats bone. In 1935, chasing speed in the all-metal H1 racer, he sets a world airspeed record, 352 miles per hour. Then runs out of fuel and crash lands in a beet field. In 1943, he ditches a Sikorsky S-43 amphibian into Lake Mead. 2 die. In 1946, test flying the prototype XF-11 reconnaissance plane, a prop fault sends him into Beverly Hills. He slams through homes, survives by inches. His body breaks. Codeine becomes a companion. The pain doesn't quit. Neither does he. Hollywood censors fight him on The Outlaw for its sexuality. Washington fights him on contracts. Too much money, too few results. Boardrooms sigh at his memos. He answers with more work, more projects, more sealed doors. He bleeds in private, performs in public, and plots in rooms that get darker every year. Struggle for Hughes is a cycle. Make, crash, refit, repeat. He treats shame like turbulence. White knuckle through it, then climb. The crash scars don't leave. They just harden into ritual. Gloves, tissues, bottles, rules. Habits that pushed back germs at first, then pushed back people. He chased the edge until it bit, then taught himself to live with it. Where others saw a finish line, he marked a point and called it mine. Chapter 3, The Turning Point. The Hercules Will Fly. It's 1947. America is counting the costs of World War II, and politicians want answers. Howard Hughes sits before the Senate War Investigating Committee, chaired by Senator Owen Brewster, a friend to Pan Am's Juan Trippi, Hughes's aviation rival. The topics: the XF-11 crash and the H-4 Hercules, a monstrous wooden flying boat the press mocks as the spruce goose. It's mostly birch, but the joke sticks. The hearing is fire and theater. Brewster suggests profiteering. Hughes counters with a dare wrapped in fury. Quote with context, 1947 testimony. I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it, and I've stated several times that if it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back, and I mean it. Then the line that history remembers. The Hercules will fly and I will be in it. On November 2nd, 1947, in Long Beach Harbor, he proves it. The H-4 lifts, briefly but undeniably, about a mile at 70 feet, for less than a minute. It is not practical. It is symbolic. It is Hughes distilled, impossible, expensive, late, and airborne. The public sees a stubborn genius defend his honor. The man in the cockpit feels something rarer, a promise kept to himself. It buys him room to keep building, to keep buying, to keep hiding. Transition. With the Senate behind him, the sky widens. So do the shadows. Chapter 4. Rise to Fame. Speed, studios, and skies. By the late 1930s, he's a national hero. After the H-1 record, he shatters the transcontinental mark in 1937. Los Angeles to Newark in 7 hours, 28 minutes. In 1938, he circles the globe in just over 3 days, 19 hours. Headline immortality. Time magazine names him Man of the Year. In airlines, he places a giant bet. Trans World Airlines. Through Hughes' tool, he buys control and orders fleets, sleek Lockheed Constellations with dolphin backs and pressurized cabins. He fights Juan Tripp's Pan Am for international routes, and when Senator Brewster seems to side with Tripp, Hughes unloads in hearings, charisma as a weapon. He doesn't like monopolies unless he owns them. In Hollywood, he buys RKO Radio Pictures in 1948, slashes, censors, retools. He fights the Hays Code on The Outlaw, fights the Reds in a witch hunt climate, and fights his own boredom. He dates icons, Katharine Hepburn, Ava Gardner, then disappears mid-dinner into a project that can't wait. He sells RKO in 1955, having scorched and reshaped parts of it beyond recognition. His empire multiplies like mirrored rooms. Hughes Aircraft, founded 1932, grows into a powerhouse in radar, missiles, and space electronics. In 1953, he creates the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. On paper, a biomedical charity. In practice, a tax shelter for Hughes aircraft profits. Decades later, it will become one of the largest philanthropies in science. For now, it is a shell with a destiny. The man who won headlines learns to dislike them. He prefers to move money by phone in the dark, from behind a sliding door, through a chain of trusted aides. He's becoming a rumor you can wire money to. He turned bright crowds into a blur, while engines sang his signature. Fame was a match. He loved the fire, but burned the audience, then retired. Chapter 5. Controversies. Crash, codeine, sensors, and control. The Beverly Hills crash leaves him shattered. Collarbone, ribs, lungs, burned by fuel. Pain becomes his climate. Doctors prescribe codeine. He never really stops. He isolates to control variables, light, touch, words, germs. He issues memos like commandments, demanding perfect sealing tape on milk bottles, exact room temperatures, a hierarchy of hand washing that turns assistants into acolytes. RKO becomes a battleground. He culls scripts and staff in anti-communist purges, then freezes productions, then sells the whole thing like a bored god. Critics call it mismanagement. Admirers call it vision without patience. The outlaw smashes the Hays Code for sex and shape, censors delay and cut. Hughes learns how to sell scandal by pretending to suppress it. Scarface fights censors for violence. Later, The Conqueror, starring John Wayne, shoots near nuclear test sites in Utah. Years afterward, a cluster of cancers among cast and crew will haunt the film, and Hughes himself reportedly buys up prints so he can screen it privately, repeatedly, as if repetition could undo regret. In 1966, he checks into Las Vegas's Desert Inn and refuses to leave. Rather than move, he buys the hotel. Then he buys more: the Sands, the Frontier, the Landmark, the Castaways, the Silver Slipper, casinos and real estate that turn him into Vegas at scale. He runs the city through phones and proxies, the Mormon Mafia, a trusted cadre of Latter-day Saint aides led by Frank William Gay, while he orders the removal of a neon slipper because the light shines in his window. He's never seen, always felt, and in the strangest partnership of all, the CIA leverages his name. In 1974, using Hughes as cover, the agency sponsors the Glomar Explorer, a ship built to recover a sunken Soviet submarine in the Pacific. The attempt becomes legend. The phrase, "we can neither confirm nor deny," enters the official lexicon. Hughes's invisibility becomes an asset even to the government. Controversy follows a man who refuses to slow down. So does myth. Some rumors are true, some aren't. He wore tissue boxes as slippers, they say. He kept his hair long, nails longer. He watched Ice Station Zebra on loop for months. The specifics blur. The pattern doesn't. Control everything you can to survive everything you can't. Chapter 6, Fights and Rivalries, Trippy, Brewster, and the Boardroom Wars. Hughes versus Tripp is the borderline myth of American aviation. Pan Am's global empire versus TWA's ambition. Senator Owen Brewster, friendly to Tripp, pushes legislation that would entrench Pan Am's monopoly. Hughes explodes at the brazenness, then at Brewster himself. During the 1947 hearings, he frames himself as the underdog innovator, Pan Am as the protected giant. It's accurate enough to win hearts and headlines. In the boardroom, he plays the long game until he doesn't. His control of TWA triggers antitrust alarms. Consent decrees, lawsuits, and fines accumulate. In 1966, under pressure, he sells his TWA stake for a breathtaking sum, hundreds of millions, refueling a private empire, now migrating to Nevada and the Caribbean. He later buys Air West in 1970, rebranding it Hughes Air West, the yellow top banana in the West, only to find that distance management and old habits don't make for an easy airline. He fights unions, censors, senators, investors, even pilots. But the fiercest opponent is paradox. The drive for absolute control in systems that reward collaboration. The appetite for speed in structures that require patience. The need for privacy in businesses that demand trust. He battled men and made them yield, but fought himself on every field. A will of iron, a heart of glass. He always won and couldn't pass. Chapter 7, Words from the Shadow, quotes in context. Howard Hughes didn't give many speeches, but when he chose to talk, the sentences stuck. 1947 Senate testimony, defending the H-4 Hercules. I put the sweat of my life into this thing. I have my reputation rolled up in it. If it's a failure, I'll probably leave this country and never come back. And I mean it. Context. Under fire for wartime contracts after a devastating crash, he dared the committee and himself to make the giant fly. Weeks later, it did. The vow at those same hearings, the Hercules will fly and I will be in it. Context, both promise and provocation. He fulfilled it on November 2nd, 1947, lifting the H-4 for a brief, historic hop on risk and ambition. From interviews over the years, paraphrased by contemporaries. If I have any religion at all, it's the belief in flight. Context. For a man who measured life by altitude and airspeed, flying wasn't a hobby, it was doctrine. Notably absent are the quips people assign to him from movies and myth. I'm not a paranoid, deranged millionaire, I'm a billionaire. That's a screenwriter's line. Hughes's real voice is stranger. Grand when cornered, clipped when in control. Long stretches of silence, filled with memos that measure towels and calibrate doorknobs. When he speaks in public, it's to stake reputation. When he speaks in private, it's to specify the thickness of a seal on a milk bottle. Chapter 8, Impact. The wake of a vanishing man, aviation. He pushed metal past its comfort zone. His H-1 racer influenced airframe design. His records lifted the ceiling on what pilots thought possible. His bets on pressurized, long-range aircraft helped turn luxury into a standard. TWA pushed comfort, speed, and service that set bars Pan Am had to clear. The H-4 is a paradox, an engineering marvel, a logistical folly, and an icon of audacity. He crashed more than once and kept climbing. He made flight feel inevitable. Entertainment. He spent money like a dare and dared censors like a sport. Scarface broke and remade gangster cinema. The Outlaw made the Hays Code blush. RKO under Hughes was chaos, but also a pivot toward a model where a single will could steer a studio, for better or worse. The idea of a producer magnate, answerable to nobody, gained a face. Business and science. Hughes aircraft became an engine of innovation in electronics, missiles, and space systems. The Howard Hughes Medical Institute, born as a tax shelter in 1953, transformed after his death into one of the largest philanthropies in biomedical research, funding discoveries that save lives he never lived to see. The Glomar Explorer, his name as camouflage for a CIA hunt, altered the language of secrecy itself. We can neither confirm nor deny. Culture. He turned Las Vegas from a playground into a controlled environment, codifying a new corporate Las Vegas. Big money behind quiet doors. He normalized the billionaire recluse, private jets, private islands, private rules, an archetype America both covets and fears. He drew a map of reach and risk and traced it with a pilot's wrist. He left us speed and also cost, a legend found, a human lost. Chapter 9, The Vanishing. Final years, death, and aftershock. In the late 1960s, the door shuts for good. He lives in penthouses and hotel floors sealed like clean rooms. Desert Inn, Landmark, then farther afield. The Bahamas, Nicaragua, back to the Bahamas. London interludes, finally Mexico. Aides rotate shifts guarding a man they barely see. He speaks by phone, or not at all. He watches the same films for weeks. He loses weight. He loses daylight. He loses the plot. Every empire writes for its king. On April 5th, 1976, a private jet lifts off from Acapulco, carrying Hughes toward Houston for medical care. He is 70 years old. Somewhere over Mexico, his body gives out. Kidney failure amid malnutrition and neglect. When the plane lands, authorities identify him by fingerprints. The richest ghost on Earth needed prints to prove he'd ever been here. The public reaction is shock and silence. News anchors read numbers that don't square with a life. Height, weight, assets, ailments. Courts brace for a storm. A will surfaces in Utah, the Mormon will, naming a gas station attendant as a beneficiary after an alleged hitchhiking encounter. It's ruled a forgery. Lawsuits multiply. Fortune, if it's big enough, becomes weather. Out of the litigation and sale of Hughes aircraft to General Motors in 1985, one clear light emerges. The Howard Hughes Medical Institute, suddenly flush with billions, funding research at a scale the world has rarely seen. In laboratories and clinics, strangers to his story will benefit from his shell's second life. He left in silence, thin as air, a name that money couldn't bear. Yet, in the echo after pain, his fortune learned to heal a vein. So what do we do with a man who flew too high and dug too deep? We end where the climb began, with a vow in a plane that shouldn't have flown. Picture Long Beach, 1947. The Hercules, a cathedral of wood and will, sits on the water like an impossible animal. Critics smirk. Senators sharpen pens. Howard Hughes walks up the gangway with ribs that still hurt and a stare that will not blink. He takes the controls. The engines bellow. The spray combs into feathers. And then, against weight, against doubt, the giant lifts. Not far, not long, but enough. This is the man and the moral. He built machines that flew and machines that fell. He bought cities and then hid from them. He hurt people by neglect and changed the world by insistence. He proved that vision without limits can build miracles, and that without guardrails, it can also erase the self. He was the billionaire who vanished. But before he disappeared, he left a line that still pulls us off the ground. The Hercules will fly, and I will be in it. The engine note swells. The aircraft skims sky. Then cut to silence. One beat. Fade to black.